the Endangered Stories series, in particular with the interviews, you know, I've done so many now where each one has been unique in its own right, and each one has been an incredible learning experience. But there has been one in particular that has stuck out.
Some coffee. That's good. Thank you.
There we go. Some behind the scenes shots. All right. So I was given the opportunity to interview Ben Vesna when he only had a few weeks left to live. And since completing that project, I found it really hard to bounce back to create more content. I sort of lost the essence or the drive to produce more projects. All the other ideas seemed sort of frivolous compared to Ben's video. And because of that, I lost the passion for it. And Ben's video was the catalyst of this. It was the most emotional project that I've ever been involved in. I mean, I've interviewed people who have since passed away, but I've never interviewed anybody who I knew only had a couple weeks left to live. It ended up being one of those projects where you'd say, that's it, I can retire, I feel fulfilled, there's nothing more I can do beyond this. But it couldn't be that way. I had to figure out a way to push forward and keep going and keep producing. To make you understand where I'm coming from with all this, let me just explain to you what led to this interview. Near the end of 2022, one of my sons acquired a little drum kit, and we wanted to give him drum lessons by someone sort of local. And the first person I thought of was Ben. Ben had been the guy that I'd known my whole life to play drums. I reached out to him, he accepted, which later on I found out that it wasn't really something that he did, taking kids so young.
People have tried to get me to teach 6-year-olds, and I generally like, So.
But nevertheless, we started that same year, late 2022, and it was great. Bo progressed beautifully with Ben. Ben was great with Bo. I think Ben's just great with kids. He's a great teacher.
Woo! There we go. There we go. Give it a go. Perfect. Perfect. Do you think you can go faster?
No.
No. Okay, we'll leave it at that. That's fine. That's actually not part of the drum set, but sure, why not?
I can't reach it.
He even helped Bo and his school win a CBC music competition, a nationwide competition, by helping Bo come up with a little drum beat for the song that they did. And we continued for all of 2023 and for the better part of 2024. Monday afternoons at 4:30, we would go to Ben's house for our lesson until late spring of 2024. That's when things kind of changed.
It's time. Okay. But the meeting we had last night was so important. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I woke up this morning, wasn't like yesterday. Pretty bad. Still is bad.
I bumped into Ben at the shops and instinctively asked him, how you doing? And he said, not good for real. I knew Ben was sick. I knew he had been sick for a while, even before we started lessons. So him saying it to me in that way, I knew something was very serious. Classes were canceled with Bo for the next couple of weeks, but we did manage to get one more class in there, where at the end he gifted Bo with some custom Ben Vesna drumsticks, which was telling of what was to follow. And that was indeed confirmed on June 9th. Ben knew about the Endangered Stories series. He was a fan, so I don't know what made me do it, but I had asked him about possibly doing an interview. And we did a little back and forth, and I had my interview kit prepped just in case he would send me a message, because he had his up days and down days. But June 11th at 12:01, I got the message. Without much time to prepare, I grabbed my bag, I flew over to his place. I had jotted down like a couple of questions on a piece of paper. This interview was a first. I had done many interviews before, but this one was very different. For all the other interviews that I had done, there's tons of research that I do about the landscape, about the person specifically, pre-interviews, phone calls. This one had none of that. Subject-wise, all the other ones had been about creating a greater picture of a landscape, of a historical landscape, of a particular area. This one, it wasn't a part of anything. It was sort of a deserted island on its own. The other interviews had a cocktail of emotions: excitement, intrigue, curiosity. This one, though it had that, it also had a completely different set of emotions attached to it. Ben's from the get-go was preservation for his family. He messaged me and said, if anything, I want this for my kids. I felt that a lot was riding on what was going to come out of this video. The least I could do is give them a video that was clear and covered as many topics as possible that they would want. I mean, it was just a really heavy responsibility. Heavy. Compared to, I hope people like this and put it out there. And if they don't, I'll do another one. So technically it was incredibly challenging too, because we didn't have many options. When I first saw Ben, I saw his state physically and mentally, and made the call that the chair that he was sitting in when I arrived at the house and the position it was in was pretty much going to be where I was going to film. Once we started filming, because there was no pre-production, I had to kind of come up with everything in my head as we were doing the interview. So a couple tricks that I've gained from previous interviews is stuff like make sure that every thought that comes up with either myself or Ben gets completed. There's a beginning and there's an ending to every thought. If we jump to a different topic, try to remember what was spoken about before and make sure everything kind of connects. And all of that was going on at the same time as also being cognizant of Ben's demeanor and making sure that he's still okay. Because again, we didn't have much time to pull this off. The day after the interview, Ben entered palliative care. So we didn't have much time to complete the video. So it was the most important thing for us to do at the studio. So myself and my editor, day and night, we did our best to piece this together. The intention was to get the video done, completed, and out while Ben was still with us, so that he can enjoy it with his family and vice versa, and that hopefully he could have seen the comments that would stream in from people who knew him and his close friends. So on Sunday night, June 16th, it was Father's Day, the video went live on my YouTube channel. Once it was all complete and it was posted and the comments were happening and the project was essentially finished, I realized that the whole thing was kind of done, like it just seemed like a big, it was just like a big blur. The emotions were so high during the whole thing. The adrenaline was pumping to get the whole thing done on time, that there was definitely a low at the end of it, which left me feeling a little bit numb. The level of importance of this project and just the honor that I had to have been given the chance to do something like this for Ben, for his family, for all the people who knew him, was insane. I mean, this is why Ben's video is the catalyst to me stopping the Endangered Stories series for a few months. All the other videos I was gonna do just after that just seemed so, who cares? This is why I stopped. I took time off and I had to figure out a way how to bounce back. In that time of reflection, I was thinking to myself and asking myself questions, why was I so moved by this interview? It's on a personal level, right? It's not like Ben and I were best friends. It's not like we had spoken every single day for years and we'd been in each other's lives and our families knew each other, we were related to each other. It just, I wasn't sure. I guess I've known Ben on and off for about 35 years. I first met Ben in the late 80s. Ben was a close friend of my older brother's. So he was one of my older brother's friends that I would see at my parents' house growing up. I would see them hanging out for birthdays. I remember Ben dancing to music that I thought was cool. I remember we played Spin the Bottle together, not with each other, but with a group. Then entering high school, Ben had already been there for a few years and he had taken up drumming. We did a play together where he was the drummer and I was this bat, and we had this sequence where he was thrashing the toms and I was jumping around the stage as a bat and the strobe light, and that was an incredible memory. And then after high school, we'd bump into each other a few times. We'd worked in a similar industry. I was doing audio visuals and he was of course doing music, so I had set up some of the gigs that he was involved in, so I would see him playing every once in a while. And that kind of leads up to 2022 when Bo got the drum kit and I had to think of a drummer to be his teacher. Thought of Ben. So reflecting on all those old memories, those weren't just little blips in time. Those were my endangered stories. Those were my tiny little endangered stories for the greater story that is the history of Ben and I, how I knew Ben, why I had any emotion towards him. I had discredited all that stuff because they weren't big, huge moments. It doesn't have to be. And I thought about a lot of these things. Especially during the interview, I had to find all these videos and all these old pictures, and it made me think of, all these tiny little micro moments that I had with Ben. And each of those moments brought on their own little micro story. Just like what I've been doing with the Endangered Stories series, right? I'm not telling the history of Point Claire. I'm telling the history of Point Claire through these small little micro stories. And it's each of those tiny little moments with Ben that added to my story with Ben, and probably the emotion that I felt when I was with him during those drum lessons, especially during the interview, especially the idea of losing someone who I did have in my life, even if it was just for a short time. Here I was thinking that this interview was the end, but really it's just the beginning. It ended up becoming a rejuvenation of what was most important to this series. Celebrating the small stuff, giving credence to those small little moments. Everything counts, everything matters. Don't take any life experience for granted. So for all your memories and your experiences and your stories, growing up here in Point Claire and in the West Island might just be one piece to a 10,000 piece puzzle. That puzzle will never be complete without that one piece. So this project is far from over because there's a lot of pieces left. There's a lot of stories left. There's a lot of videos left in the queue, and thanks to Ben and his story and his experience for helping me unintentionally and motivating me and helping me refine the passion in this project and what we're doing here. This is just the beginning.